Welcome to this first reports interest group. This is something that I've been wrestling with, how to do training in a meaningful way for our member libraries on the reporting interface for a while. And I think that this is a way to start. I don't know if it's the best way to start. Previously, we have had little bits of training as part of the local administrative training session. The problem with that is that local admins are not the only ones who can run reports. In fact, anybody can run reports. The things that they may have access to may vary depending on the permission level, but everybody in here, I see a lot of people from different walks within the library profession. All of you have the ability to run reports to hopefully help you in your day-to-day work. That's my cat right there. I'm Ruth Frazier. There's my contact information on the screen. She does always look that angry. Today, we are going to talk about some of the basics of reporting. We're going to spend about half an hour because I know that there are a lot of people in here with very varied experience with reporting in general with Evergreen, Indiana. Then we're going to have time for some discussion, and hopefully I'll get some feedback from you as well. This reports interest group is going to happen every other month, and it will be this first Tuesday of the month, unless it has to change because of a committee meeting, in which case there will be plenty of advance notice. I would also encourage you to, if you have questions, you are welcome to turn on your cameras. You're welcome to use your mics. Probably if you have a question, it would be best if you put that into the chat screen first so that I can read it and others can read it and process it a little bit and hopefully address it in a meaningful way for you. We're going to get started by the basics, which are, first of all, getting to the reports interface and then what you find in it. There are a variety of places to get there. The easiest way is in this administration menu on the home page of the client, the web client or the staff client, however you refer to that. And you can click on that and that will take you to the reports interface. The other place that you can access that is in the administration menu under, of course, reports. I often wonder, and I haven't surveyed the community yet on how many people go into menus that are not necessarily directly related to their ideas of their roles in the library. If I know that catalogers are going to use search and they're going to use cataloging often, and they may get into the workstation to configure their workstation for their workflow, but do they go into circulation very often? Do people who work on the reference desk go into the cataloging menu or into, and all of that to say, how many people who are not in administration or management or supervisory role in some manner go into these administration menus? And I would encourage you that even if it seems like it should be somebody else's job, that you do poke around in these other menus and see what is there. So we're going to go to the reports interface. And it is probably the least exciting interface of all. There's nothing to recommend it. It doesn't look like it does anything. And yeah, it's pretty boring. And this is what it is. If we're talking about the reports interface, this is the entry point. Now you will see a few things here that are meaningful and helpful. One of the newer things is this ability to search the templates. And by newer, I mean in the past, at least for Evergreen, Indiana, the past 5 years, 2017, 2018, so for 3 or 4 years, where you can put a string in here and then decide where you want that to actually search. And I've started using that. I was so used to just kind of hunting through these folders that I often forgot that I could, get a little help with that search ability. And so I've started using that, and it's been pretty helpful. Yes, Britta makes the comment that it's super helpful when you know what to type. And the more you are in this interface, the more you will see what things have been used, and you will learn better things to type. So there are 2 sections here. There are the My folders and then the Share folders, and you'll see within each of those that there are 3 things here. There are templates, reports, and output. In the shared folders, you'll see that there are templates, reports does not have a drop down, and then output. Today we are going to look at just setting up your folders, and I'm going to show you how terribly I have set up my folders and how you can set them up, and then you can fix your organizational structure, which is what I need to do. There was a time back in a day when I had way better organizational structure because I knew that I was going to be running several types of reports, and I wanted to be able to get at them easily, and I wanted them to make sense for the person that would take over my role eventually. And since I have been back and I run reports differently, I've been kind of lazy about just creating things that I needed and throwing them in a place and hoping I found them later. The other thing that I have found is that because I've started using the search more regularly, I have done with the reports what I did with my email, which is essentially to leave most things, not everything, but most things in my inbox and then search for them. This is not what I would consider efficient workflows. I'm just letting you know that if you do this, you're not alone. How we handle this in the future, I don't know. So within here, and we're going to take a look at the shared folders. Actually, we're not going to take a look at the shared folders first. One of the main things that you need to do before you can run a report is you need to have some folders set up in here. And you will already have the templates, reports, and output main folders here, but then you have the ability to create and the necessity to create subfolders within that. You can see that I have several things here. This one, the admin monthly recurring, is just the subfolder, and then I have subfolders within the annual report. And these look like documents here, but they're actually folders. It's kind of a weird iconography that Evergreen uses in here. And then I have some other folders in here. My annual report templates folder is probably the most organized because I learned some lessons running annual report data this year. Once you have, so you'll be prompted to set up templates, and then you also need to set up reports folders and then output folders. one of the confusing things, I think, in Evergreen is that we refer to the process of running the reports as the report and the output as output, where most of the time we're talking about when we say I need to run a report, we're thinking about the output as the report itself. So I'm going to show, you can click on templates, and this is where you would then create a test templates. And I think I've actually already created this before. Let me look in here. I'm going to do it again. Test template folder. And I'm going to no, I'm not going to, yes, I am going to share that right now. And this is one of the issues. I did not follow through with that, because when you are doing this, this is also when you need to be thinking about your organizational structure. So if I'm on templates, I can create a subfolder. If I click on one of my subfolders, I can create a subfolder within that by clicking on that and then going to manage folders. Do the same thing when you are creating a folder in the reports and in the output. At any point there, and this is not a particularly structured thing here, I'm hoping to actually inspire you to ask questions or say, that is crazy. So please do. Otherwise, I'm just talking to myself this whole time. So how do I say this? Because the reports interface is not intuitive, it looks a lot harder than it is. There are instructions in the local administration training manual. There are some trainings, I think, that are linked on the website, and we just don't look for them, because it seems like when you're looking at this, let me get back just to that. When you look at this, it looks like there's nothing to do. You have to know all of the little tricks to get there. And that, to me, seems overwhelming. I don't know. For those of you who have been running reports for several years or a few years, if you feel like that anymore, or if you remember when you first encountered this, what your thoughts were. What do you think? And I am going to leave an uncomfortable silence here for a moment. Shelley says, yes, yikes. So if any of you, Keith, my thoughts are things I cannot speak in polite company. We do have to keep this relatively polite because it is being recorded and will go on the YouTube channel. But there are times when we are face-to-face again in the conference setting, or when we'll have the opportunity to actually speak our minds about this. And I do have some news about that, not about the conference, but about this interface that I'll talk about as we get further along today. So I have yet to meet anybody ever from not just Evergreen, Indiana, but anybody who has ever used the reports who said, man, I love them. They're super easy to use. Wow, I recommend that you definitely use the Evergreen reporting interface. Nobody has ever said that. Now, what they have said is that it's very powerful, and that is true. Yes, it is getting kind of old. Evergreen has been apologizing for the reports process since we joined in 2009. And that is part of what I will be talking with you about in just a few minutes. So you set up your folder. The first thing that, as a new reports runner, that I recommend is that you do not try to create your own report. You do not do anything particularly difficult. You actually use one of the shared reports and shared report templates. And you can see by clicking on that down arrow that there are, and I'm going to make this bigger. This is kind of ridiculous, and I'm making you look at this little teeny. These are the ones that show up on my interface. If you go to reports, and I'd encourage you to do that just as we're talking, and then click on that arrow for templates, you'll probably, well, you should see definitely our Fraser shared down there as well, and potentially some others that I don't see. The main reports template folder that I recommend that you check out first is the admin folder, which is full of templates that have already been created, are being used, etc. And you'll see there are even more arrows to open. You can see at one point, Odin Winkelpleck shared some folders into community favorites. So get in there and just kind of explore what is available. You can, from this shared folder, you can select, if you select then on one of these folders, you can see those templates that are available. I'm going to get an item, we'll go by circulation modifier. To use this, there are a couple ways. You can actually run a report from a template that is in the shared folder directly. In the beginning, this is okay. It's not really the recommended course of action, but it is okay to do that. And what you do is you just select that, create a new report. I'm not entirely, we'll say items by circ mod. And you can see all the ways that I type when I am new. So the workstation that you are logged in at, which is generally going to be your home library, is what's going to default here. In this case, mine is the consortial collection, and then you can choose the items that you want to have in your report. You can select those circulation modifiers. I'm just going to select them all because I know my collection is small and it's going to not take a long time to run this. And so I select them all here. You can use, what I use to select that is select the top one, push down the shift key, and select the bottom one, or you can also push down the control key, select, and that would deselect from that list, or you can control, select, whatever, and then add those. And I guess I'm just, I don't have any of these. I'll just do the video discs. Oh, but I don't have video discs. Add another one. And you can go back when you're doing this add to here. You can also delete, I know there's no CD music here. And then you're going to choose, and I messed up here, you need to select a report folder. That is going to be one that has been set up here, because that is a step that you need to do before you can run any reports. You do need to have a template folder, a reports folder, and an output folder. I'm just going to use my default messiness here. And I personally don't like to have anything selected except for the Excel output. You may like to have the HTML output depending on what type of report you're running and your preferences. When you first start, I do recommend that you just have the defaults that come up here and leave them selected so you can see what they do. I just want it to run and not have to deal with a bunch of fussiness. Again, it's up to you. Then you'll have the option. We're not going to talk about recurring reports today. The default is to run as soon as possible. You can schedule these reports. I'm going to run this as soon as possible. I do want to have this sent to my email. I believe the default for this is for it to be blank, so you may need to add an email address in here, and then you're going to pick an output folder. Keeping in mind that I've selected one of the shared templates. The reports folder that I chose up here is from my folders, and the output is from my output. Thank you, Lynn. She said the default for the email is blank. So I'm going to go ahead and save that report. And so what that did is I'm going to pop back in here, and you can see this is the report that I saved, item by circmod. And then I'm going to go into my output. And if this was still either in process of running the report or was scheduled for later, it would be under pending, but it just completed, and I have not received my email yet. Oh wait, yes I have. Let me see if you can see I got an email over there. And then I'm going to view that output. Because I left the HTML selected, this is what the HTML output would look like. You can sort by these in the browser, just a basic sort where it will be alphabetical or numerical depending on what's there. And then I can also, of course I close that, the Excel output, which is going to, let me close that real quick, provide this, and then that's going to allow me to do some advanced sorting and manipulation there, depending on whatever my task is. So that's just one example. So I just ran that using a shared template, and you can see then those things that had those circulation modifiers, the transiting video disk. I had another circulation modifier that I had chosen. Oh, you are, pardon me, I'm gonna need to change my share. It's just showing the one thing. There. I'm going to go through all of that again. I'm not going to say everything, but I'm going to actually show you. So I can click on this. This is what the tabular results look like, where you can sort if you have HTML selected from that. And then if you just get the Excel, which is my preference because I like to do usually something that's a little bit more than just sorting by one column, it's going to have that ready, and you can then go about whatever manipulation of data you need to do. What else did I say that I didn't show you? Was there anything specifically that you wanted me to show you again?
You didn't show the email that came through.
Oh yeah, here's, and I'm going to show you really fast because I have other email in there. So I have that, this is what that notification looks like. This goes through the firewall, so your link will look different than this. So you can actually click directly on that link from the email which you probably won't have to click through the firewall, and it will bring you to these results. You don't have to go into the reporter. This can be pretty helpful if you are doing recurring reports, because you're going to get an email notification that the report run, as long as you have it set up that way. And then you can click that link and get the output for that report directly from the email. Okay, we're not going to talk about cloning reports today into your own folders, because that gets a little bit further into the weeds. But so a couple things that I wanted to let you know, and I'm going to let this Noble County person in. I have a little survey here, and I'm going to send an email. Yes, Monica says that getting the output via email is even good for non-recurring reports, because you know exactly when it's done. Yeah, that's actually how I use it. That's why I have my email notification set for every report I run, because I want to go do something else, and then it's going to let me know when it's done. The only time that I really want to be checking the outputs folder is if I'm feeling super impatient, or I am testing a template to see if it actually works. Yes, Britta describes exactly what I do when I'm testing a template, even though sometimes you'll just keep clicking the output folder in the hopes that it's done. Yes, because if you click the outputs folder, it's refreshing it. So, which might be annoying Bob somehow. I'm not entirely sure if that constant refresh somehow like messes with the people who are monitoring it. I don't
No, it
know.
does not.
Okay.
Because
It's
all it does is
just a
go
browser refresh. Yeah.
It's a browser refresh. So.
So I have here a link to a Google form. I'm going to send this. Actually, I'm going to put this in the, let me make sure that I have, yeah, into the chat right now. And I'd like to use this form for a couple things. First of all, I want your feedback on what topics you want to talk about. We are going to talk in the future about cloning reports, creating your own reports, getting into the database schema, recurring reports, and all of those things. But if there's something specifically within that you would like to talk about, I would love for you to put that in here by submitting this questionnaire. The other thing I'm going to use this for is so that you don't actually, you could, well, I have it set up as required, but just put like nonsense in there if you don't want to actually have a topic to discuss or something, is I'm going to use this for the attendance for today, and so that I can send out LEUs to those of you who want an LEU for it. So make sure that you fill out that questionnaire, because this is a meeting, it doesn't take attendance. And rather than putting it into chat, if you could fill this out, and then I'll use that for getting LEUs and follow-up emails to you for today's interest group. Okay, so this afternoon at 1 o'clock, I'll check my calendar. I think it's 1 o'clock, maybe 1:30. We have a meeting with Equinox, who has been approached about developing a simple reports dashboard. And they want to essentially pitch us on supporting the development for that. They were hoping to get some grant money to create that, and they didn't. And so now they are looking for development partners essentially to pay them to build it. And because it is something that has been such a long-standing request, but also it's a long-standing need within not just Evergreen, Indiana, but the Evergreen community at large. We're very interested. And so we're going to go to that meeting. This is going to be the ECDI as well as Evergreen, Indiana. Will be in that meeting this afternoon to see what they're proposing. And I hope to have some news about that at the next reports interest group. So if you have any thing that you want us to look out for or to request, you can either put that in this questionnaire or you put it in the chat as well. Karen has a comment here about cleaning up reports that are duplicate. Karen, are you talking about reports that you have created that are duplicates, or ones that are maybe in the shared folders that are duplicates?
In the shared folders
Okay.
that are duplicates. And I might be wrong. It might not be duplicates, but to me, they were duplicates and I couldn't get, I mean,
there are some that are very similar to one another, and there are some others who are written a little bit differently that essentially report on the same thing.
Right.
So, and it can be kind of annoying. I'm just going to say annoying when you are looking for something that has some nuance to it, this has some nuance that's different from the other thing, and you run it and it's exactly the same output. It just approaches it a little bit differently. And that it does feel a lot like a waste of time. There is some organization that does need to be done in the admin folders. And one thing I want to point out here, let me pop in here again. I'm just going to go into, doesn't really matter which one I'm in. You'll notice this UI column, that's the user interface. And by and large, in the shared folders, you'll see where it says XUL, and that stands for Zool Runner. And that is what the Gone staff client was built on. The desktop application was the Zool Runner, or used Zool Runner. I'm going to pop into some of my templates, and you can see here the user interface now says web staff, which is the web or the staff client. I'm going to see if I can actually see one in here that most of mine are new since I have started here again. So most of them say web staff. Let's see if I can find anything that's old. Apparently not. Yeah, so anything that has been created using the web client interface, which looks exactly like the Zool Runner interface, is going to say web staff. And anything that is older than that is going to say Zool. So that when there are sometimes some issues with running them directly from them. And so I do recommend, well, we're going to talk about that another time. Rather than running directly from the shared folder, cloning them into your own templates folders. But there's that. So any feedback on the meeting that's going to happen this afternoon? Anything that you'd like us to go into that meeting with? And I'll let you think about it. And at the same time, I'm going to ask, so what questions do you have about reports or issues or whatever? I mean, I think that we all have some issues just with the interface not being particularly usable, but questions that will help you leaving this interest group today. if not, I mean, we're not going to belabor the point, and I'll let you know what we're going to cover in the next meeting. Okay, so next time we're going to get a little bit more into this, and we're going to talk about what information is actually being used from the database and how the reports interface is pulling that data, and then how you can configure, how you can use the existing templates to fine tune some of your reports, as well as how you can potentially, if needs be, create your own reports from scratch. And then hopefully we'll have some feedback in that, in the forms, the form that I sent out, the questionnaire, and how to do that. Shelley says, I believe that the templates are pretty comprehensive, and I can usually find something that works. I don't ever have to create for reports. It's a good excuse too that I can't get that data. Fair. Fair. And that's good. That's the goal, honestly, of those shared templates, is that you don't have to. It would be nice if they were perhaps, as you say, Karen, cleaned up a little bit. And also, I do think that we at the administrative level need to go through and test the ones that exist and make sure that they still work. The database tables have changed a little bit over the years, and so some of them may be broken if they are calling on a table that has a new name or something like that. So, but that's a good thing if the templates are meeting your needs. Having good descriptions helps when you are searching the templates too. So I want to, one of the issues that I have with the reports interface is that the templates themselves cannot be edited yet. We do have the functionality now that we can go into a report that's been saved and we can edit that. And I'm going to pop here. So if you were to rename this report, you do have the option to save it as new, which would keep the it would keep the existing report, and it would establish a new one as well. Yes, Shelley, there are broken tables in some of these older reports. This really is something that does need to be done, that we need to go through all of these shared folders, the template folders, and test the reports that are in there to see which ones are still functional. Most of them are, but a few of them are not. And if you come across one that is not, it's perfectly appropriate, that is not functional, it's perfectly appropriate to put in a help desk ticket for that. And I'm not gonna actually save another report because it will run a thing, but you can do that. But you don't have that same option when we're talking about the templates. It would be nice to be able to edit the templates rather than to go through the whole process of cloning one, which can be pretty overwhelming. Yes. And let me see if I have some really bad output in here. Well, the thing about the output too to keep in mind is that output that gets purged after 30 days. So if you are thinking that you can use the outputs folder as a type of storage for things, you can't. We purged that because otherwise it would build up on the servers and cause storage issues. We don't have the room for that. Now, the reports themselves do not get purged. I don't believe, although I could be wrong about that. I think maybe the reports do get purged after 30 days as well, unless they're recurring reports.
That is correct.
Okay. But your templates do not get purged.
Templates do not get purged.
And recurring reports do not.
Recurring reports do not.
The output from your recurring reports does.
Right.
Unless what?
Well, I was just saying, reports and outputs only, well, reports don't get purged if they are recurring.
Right.
Outputs do get purged even if it's a recurring report.
Right. And that is something to definitely keep in mind if we're talking about like those snapshot reports that you get for like your collection size or patrons as of this date or something like that, that they're going to run away. So it is best to save your output somewhere else. I did have at one point a ballooning folder of output because I was running a daily daily reports on new cards and items added to our, I don't remember why I was doing this. It was a few years ago, but adding the report every single day was kind of crazy. So, and this is the other thing to think about, whether you want to use Excel or a CSV. CSV is going to be a smaller file size, but if you are going to be doing data manipulation that requires multiple worksheets within that workbook or workbooks within that worksheet, I always get them mixed up, then Excel is going to be your best bet because you only get one page on a CSV. Yes. And if anybody ever wants to come to the 4th floor after we all get vaccinated and everything and wants to look at some of the incredible spreadsheets that have been created from the report data, the report output from Evergreen, we'd love to show you either that or maybe we can do it offsite because it may require a flight of a stout/porter to accompany. Or sparkling water, whatever works best for you. Any other comments, questions for today's interest group? I feel myself talking way, way too much. Lynn, anything you want to throw in there? We're going to talk about schema next time.
Okay. No.
Okay, that's cool.
Just remember to always download your output.
Yes.
Even if you get the emails, don't assume because you have the email and you've saved the email that the output's going to be saved.
That's a very good point. So that email does not send you the output. It sends you a link to the output. There's no like attached Excel or CSV file to that. So that is not actually sending you your output. It's sending you a doorway to your output. So as Lynn says, make sure to download it or save it in whatever way you save your output.
Because I've had that catch me a couple times where not thinking about it, I just get the emails, not thinking about them.
I'll get it later. I'll get it later, a month later, and it's gone.
Yeah. So,
Keith, you got anything that you want to throw in? I know that cloning is not really the topic for today, but just curious, what are some of the advantages of cloning and when would you clone instead of just using templates? So I will tell you what I think are the advantages of cloning. First of all, it helps you determine which templates works best for you. So you can have a folder of your go-tos, especially if we're talking about like monthly board reports or collection analysis reports, and you can organize them in the way that is best for you. And also make sure that you're checking for those broken bits in there when you clone it. My recommendation is you clone it and you test it, as opposed to just cloning it. And that's going to allow you to make sure that it works in the way that you expect it to work. Sometimes I do like to run a report from the shared folders and then clone it if I want to fine tune it. Oftentimes I do want to fine tune it a little bit. And so cloning is not just necessarily making an identical thing. It gives you the opportunity to fine tune it a little bit more and to organize it in the way that's best. But I will say for some people, cloning is not advantageous for them.
Well,
and that's okay. I mean, if you find something in the shared folder that you only run like 2 or 3 reports, you know where it's at and it works, there's nothing wrong with that.
the biggest thing about cloning reports is the thing is, I'm going to say,
Okay.
if you are running a recurring report,
Oh, yeah.
clone the report.
Yeah, if you're going to do a recurring report, definitely clone that.
Because if you're using one of my reports, and I go in there and delete it, well, now your recurring report's not going to run.
That is a very good point. Most
So,
of the admin templates are not going to get messed with, but if you're running something from one of the other shared folders, there's no guarantee that whoever has shared that folder is going to keep it there. So definitely clone it.
Yeah, just as a matter of course, if there's a report that I like, I will tend to clone it, and then much like the wise squirrel, I will stuff it in my cheeks and carry it up into my lair and bury it.
Yes.
Where now I have access to no matter once it's in my folder, I can do whatever I want with it, and no one else can muck with it. And I've found that about 95% of every report that I've ever written is basically cloned using someone else. Someone else has already put in a lot of hard work building like almost exactly the thing that I need.
Mm-hmm.
And maybe I just need to display like one extra column. Like maybe I want that weeding report that has, when maybe that weeding report I want to know, or I want to be able to see, when was the item added to the collection, or what's the circ modifier on that. And cloning that's really reporting 201.
Yeah. And we are going to get into that in the next one, where we're going to clone it and we're going to look, because there has not been a time when I have just done a direct clone. There's always been something where it is a direct clone, but where I had exactly the information. I have run it as like, I'd also really like to see this thing. Or I want to sort by this, but it's not here. And if it's not there, you can't sort by it. So you can add exactly as Keith and Julie and Monica kind of says, yes, and then I know that the template works. You can add those columns in there just to fine tune them for what you want to have done. Unless, I'm assuming, I don't know who Noble County is there, but I am assuming it's either Jennifer Steffi or maybe Mandy. I'm not sure, but a good system, and you don't have to search for that template again when you clone it, unless you have this amazing organizational structure that says our Fraser ISL and has absolutely no context whatsoever for that, in which case you do have to search for it, and this is why I need to organize my stuff better. Keith also mentioned that the search is invaluable. I have completely abused the search. Okay, if there are no other comments, questions for today, again, I'm going to put that link into the chat for the questionnaire. Please fill that out with your name and your email. The member library name doesn't matter so much as long as you have an email there. And if you have a topic you'd like to discuss or anything like that, or you have questions, put those in there. If you don't, just put like something in there, since I made it a required question, not looking at it closely enough, so that I can make sure to get follow-up emails to you related to this. Next meeting will be in June, and will be on June the 1st. So I hope to see you and others here, and we'll talk about cloning and recurring reports and database schema.
I do have one thing. Please join the Evergreen Reports listserv if you're not already a member.
Can you throw the link in there?
I will.
Or I might have it right here too. You got it? Yep, you got it. Okay.
That way we can talk about reports. Any report that you're having issues with, maybe we will all know, we'll all look at it and tell you what your issues are, and we can all learn from each other.
And this has been a really quiet list for a long time. If we could breathe some life into it, I think it would definitely benefit everybody, and maybe streamline some. We get some of the same questions about reports fairly regularly, and I mean like on a weekly basis, that really could be things that were better served by peer support as opposed to help desk support. And so I would encourage you to, just as Lynn did, to join that Evergreen Reports list and use it when you got questions or comments or whatever.
Say your search didn't come up with a template that you could use. Maybe someone who has one out there that you can use that's not actually in a shared folder.
Or maybe you made a report that you just love and you need to share just to get the validation for how awesome the report is. I've done that before. I'm like, I need to tell somebody about this report. Look at my output. It's amazing. It's a weird thing to go home and say, let me tell you about this report. And I've done it and I've gotten the looks. So if we can support one another in this professional realm, it would probably be good for our personal lives too.
Yeah, because my husband doesn't want to know what the query I did the other day.
But he should, shouldn't he? Never mind. It's another conversation. Again,